Would like to call to order the December 4th, 2017 Cabarrus County Board of Commissioners work session. Welcome everyone. We have in front of you our agenda for tonight along with several changes. Do I hear a motion that we approve the work session agenda as presented, including the changes? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. Next, we move to discussion items. First up is the Salvation Army Center of Hope Homeless Shelter, and we're glad to have William Mills, Ken Griffin, and Major Rebecca Poole with us to talk about that. And her husband, too. Okay. And I think Rebecca's sending her husband in her stead. Welcome.
Chairman Morris, members of the commission, I'm William Mills. I'm going to do a brief introduction, and then I'll let Rebecca Poole take my chair, since she may be more useful to the process than I am. Behind me to your left is Larry Phillips, who is taking over for me as chairman of the advisory conference. So this is my last duty as chairman. Our annual meeting is tomorrow and the end of my term. About 40 years ago, Corporate Christian Ministries and the Salvation Army started an emergency shelter program, and it has operated continuously since that time. It has received some public support from from the city of Concord in the form of block grants, but to the best of my knowledge, it has not received public support from Cabarrus County. Over those 40 years, it's become a vital part of the social safety net in Cabarrus County in providing emergency shelter, particularly at night in the winter months, but now it's a year-round program. We're in the last 24 months, 36 months, Corporate Christian Ministries has changed the focus of their ministry and withdrawn and no longer participates in the operating expense of the night shelter and the soup kitchen, which is a related function. The Salvation Army's met that challenge and overcome that, and is now in the process of planning for an expansion to meet the new need that has arisen in our community for homeless shelter, particularly for families with children and women who find themselves homeless in our current economic situation. Ken Griffin is going to do a brief presentation for you on those plans. We appreciate very much the County Commission inviting us here. We didn't come here to make a specific request of the County Commission, but as we enter into this new phase and get this building built, the staffing requirements, which are an ongoing expense, annual expense for the Salvation Army, will increase significantly because of the expansion of the number of people using the facility. And the Salvation Army would certainly welcome annual support from the county as a part of its budget for social services in Cabarrus County. Thank you very much, and with that, I'm going to turn it over to the Major's Pool and invite Rebecca to take my seat. Thank you.
Thank you.
Come on up.
Ken's going to do
You're going to do your presentation first.
Be glad to.
Okay.
I'll give you an overview of a proposed facility. I have a few slides that I'll walk through with you. First slide shows the property, which the portion that's bordered in yellow is the land that the Salvation Army has owned for a number of years and where the current facilities are. And there are 3 buildings on that site, and this property is at the corner of Patterson Avenue and Ashland Drive. And the building closest to the corner is the headquarters building, which houses administrative office for the Salvation Army and also a chapel. And the building, that second building If you look at the map to the lower left, it fronts on Patterson is a food pantry, warehouse, and also clothing warehouse. And then the building set back from the street is the current Center of Hope, which is the building that houses the night shelter and the soup kitchen. And it's about a 4,300 square foot building, which has been added onto over time. It has a current capacity of 19 beds for men, 16 for men and 8 for women, and 1 room that's used to house families. It's got some restrooms and a shower facility that's been added over the years, but it's just been kind of added onto, and so the control, the flow, the security is less than ideal. So for the new facility, go to the next slide. The Army, I should have pointed out, the area this was bounded in pink is a new property, which is across the street from the current property. And this is, at the bottom of this slide, is Ashland Drive. So this is right across Ashland Drive from the existing headquarters. And the new facility is a proposed 16,200 square foot facility. So it is considerably larger than the current facility, but also it's designed from the beginning to be able to have control and separation for all those who are staying in the shelter. So go to the next slide. There is a central front entrance. There's an intake patio outside, and then as the clients enter, there's a central staff station, and on the right-hand side is the dormitory area for women, and they also have their own dedicated living room space, their own laundry, showers, restrooms, and in the upper right corner there's a small porch off the living room, which is a smoking porch. And so the right-hand side of the plan is for women. The left-hand side of the plan is the area for the men, and they have 2 dorms. The women's side has 18 beds, and the men's side has 19. The men's side also has their own dedicated laundry space, showers, a living room, and a smoking porch. So once people check in, they are in the facility throughout the duration and then leave in the morning. Even to go and smoke, they stay within the confines of the building at the smoking porch. There is a central dining room at the back of the building and a kitchen. They have separate entrances from the women's side and the men's side, and the intent is to have different servings, so the men come in and eat at one time, the women come in and eat at a separate time. And then to the right on the floor plan of that central staff station is an elevator, and that leads to the lower level. Go to the next slide, please. The lower level is the family area. The existing facility has 1 room with a bathroom off of it. That's all there is for families. The proposed plan would have 6 dedicated suites on the lower level for families, each suite containing 2 bedrooms and a sitting area, private bathroom, a closet, and then there's storage areas for the families on this floor. And at the far right on this level, there's a playground that has access directly from this level. There is a children's space adjacent to that playground and a family living room adjacent to the children's play room. And so the large difference between the proposed facility and the existing facility is there's much greater capacity for women and much greater capacity for families, and it's all segregated and controlled, plan for separation of families, men and the women. We have some views of the exterior of the building. The site where the building will be constructed has a lot of slope from the street going downhill away from the site. So the lower slide is the front view from Ashland. So it's a 1-story building from that viewpoint. The The lower level is a basement level, but the site slopes so much that it's fully out of the ground. The upper view, the rear elevation, the lower part is the family suites, and they're fully out of the ground on that side of the building. And so all of the spaces, the occupied spaces have windows into them. But even though the building is 16,000 square feet from the street, it looks about like it's a half that size building, because half of it's in the ground on the back side. And I think we have one, we've got some side views, and that, from the side view, you can see how much slope there is on the site. The upper view, there's a parking lot at the end of the building for volunteers. The meals are provided by volunteers in the evening, and they come in, park, deliver the meals, and then leave after the meals have been served. And across the street, there's additional parking. You know, it's existing now that will also be used to support the function of this building. On the opposite end of the building, you see the playground at the end of the family area. Next slide, please. And this is two cross sections through the building, again showing how the stories align. And then a couple of renderings. The upper one is from Ashland Avenue, which would be the view looking from the existing Salvation Army facility across the street. And the lower elevation is the back of the building with the parking lot, new parking lot to the right. Thank you. Oh, and then this last one is a site map of the proposed new property. It's about 1.2 acres. Ashland Avenue is running up and down the page on the left-hand side, and the site slopes off from Ashland going to the right and downhill. But all of the development will be concentrated along the Ashland Avenue side of the property. And so if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
I hear no one speaking up.
What I'd like to do is just thank you for having us here and showing an interest in the people in the Cabarrus County and the surrounding area. We work closely with the Sheriff Department. They do bring us people constantly, you know, in the evenings, and we do need help with this. And the operation of this is 3 years ago we got here, and what was laid upon my heart is the flow of the clientele because of the security and things of this sort. That's what, again, I, being a Christian and as a pastor, the Lord laid it upon my heart. We need a better facility for the people, because we are the voice of the people. And so I got with some people, and we come up with this idea of reaching out for the families. That's what hurts me, is when I have to turn families away. That's why we went with this type of a design. Is it a perfect plan? No, but I think it's a beginning, and I think the way Ken has designed it, the need has grown in the last few years, as I've witnessed it before. You have an interstate system and other things it's going to continue to do, because they're going to come out of Charlotte. That's what they're going to do. But we're here to serve the people. We're here to do the best we can with what we got, but what we have to do is get the financial basis stabilized. That's the biggest thing on operating this. Bigger unit, more staff, more utilities, more cost, but at the same time, I do believe that this is something this city and county needs because of the need of the people.
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple of comments and questions on this, and the structure that you're wanting to build, what's sort of the time frame? Is that going to be dependent upon the fundraising?
Well, depending mainly on, we got to get rezoned, of course. We're working on that. And again, the fundraising, yes, but at the same time, I just do not think the fundraiser is going to be an issue, because we've done some things and research, and not a official feasibility study, but we've got some people that's ready to help us.
Well, that part's good. And then just one last question, as far as the square footage of that, is that comparable to neighboring counties, to what they have, or is it more or less?
Well, the Salvation Army, of course, in Charlotte, you can't compare. We went to look at that facility, and it's a 3-story, 400-bed unit. But we went, Salisbury has a shelter, but it's not ours, but theirs is larger. But we want to start off at the present need and build it to where, as the need grows, we can expand it. That's why we wanted to purchase the other properties right and left adjacent and across our campus. And, but say this is a smaller shelter, but it's feasible for us to begin to meet the need of the people. And then we can change it and acclimate it to the need as we go forward.
That was a question I had. So you said you hate turning the families away. So with the expanded room that you would have, do you feel like that would help you meet the demand for a while, or are you going to start out still behind but better off than you were?
Better off than what we were, but at the same time, there's almost every day we turn families away for whatever reason. But at the same time, the way Ken has designed this, sometimes we get families with 6 and 8 kids, and with the young lady that's been abandoned. The 2 dorms, like at a hotel, you'll have an adjoining door where you can open up 2 dorms and put them all in safe. But it'll meet the basic need right now, and if we have to, then we can look and modify the men's side. You know, the women, children, that's who I want to go after because that's special on my heart.
And do you have, what determines the length of stay?
It's 3 months right now, and it can go longer if they're doing all the processing that they're supposed to do. We've kept them up to 6 months because of the fact they're looking for work, they're working, they're saving their money, they're going for evaluations for all of their, whatever their needs may be, and then we try to transition them out into
Thank you.
housing. Thank you.
I guess I would have the same question, just to make sure I understand. With this expanded facility, based on today's numbers, you would not have to turn anyone away because of space limitations?
Well, I would love to say that. I can't because of I would say that it depends on the situations. I mean, I know that's, when we have 6 and they're going to be filled, I'm going to tell you all 6 of those rooms are going to be filled.
The 6 family rooms?
Yes, the family rooms. Now, the men, they stay pretty full most of the time now. We're only increasing it a couple. I wanted to focus on the women. Now, with the women, we stay full. We need more room for women because and again, my heart is soft on the women and children. Men, yes, need a place, but I'm just a little more stern about that. But right now, it would meet the need of the men and women and families, but you know, it's going to be a challenge for us. But we got to make certain we're putting the people in there that needs it. That's another thing. Because there are people that come to us that draw checks and, you know, whatever some kind of finances they have, and you don't want them to come there and just stay 6 months and don't contribute anything because what they're doing with their money. That's part of the evaluation process.
Right.
And so we'll get into that detail, and a lot of them don't want to release that because we're getting into their business, but they made it our business when they want to stay in our shelter.
So most of the people that are in the shelter are people that come there, let's say throughout the day, and apply. You don't just have walk-ups in the evening.
We do have walk-ups, and sometimes what we have to do is, again, we evaluate daily. The people have to abide by the rules and regulations set by the Salvation Army. 3 years ago when the Salvation Army took over, we put the bylaws of the Salvation Army in place. It's more stern. They understand they can't come in there and cause issues. And the reason I'm saying that is they can come up at 5:30, 5:45, right before they get ready to open the bed. We may be removing somebody because of an issue that we warned them in content. It's a 3-strike rule. And on that 3rd strike, we remove them. That opens that bed up where this person can come in. We do have walk-ups. And those walk-ups is first come, first served. We don't take a name, we don't take a list. But we don't have many lined up outside. That's not what happens.
Right.
No.
A big focus that we've taken on here in the county over the past year is many discussions about mental health issues.
Yes.
And what percentage of your clients would you say have needs in that area?
I would go as far as saying 30%. And that's a substantial. And I've been talking to a young man, you may have heard of Mr. Layson, and we have been, just conferring back and forth about the different populations. And the mental is what we really need to also focus in on too, because that's a total different with the medicines that's required and the caretaking that's carried, it affects the other general population of homelessness.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Other questions? And did you want to?
I'm good.
We've been trying to get you to talk right from the very beginning.
Well, we're just thankful that you invited us here and hope that maybe you've learned a little more about us. And this new shelter, it strikes in the heart of the matter is trying to meet the needs of the families that need somewhere to go. We can't meet all their needs because we're not transitional housing. That is another issue when they come into us. We're emergency shelter, so they need to be able to get to the point where they transition out to more stable and permanent housing.
So I guess does that program interface with some of the things that Cooperative Christian Ministries is doing now with some of the transitional housing? Is there still a link, a relationship there?
There is. We refer clients to their ministries. It's just there's not a lot of housing available
Right.
for that.
And those are a little bit longer term, so it
Right.
doesn't turn over as quickly.
Right.
That's the problem we have. Ours is emergency 3 to 6 months, and ours is turned out. And that's why we say 3 months, but it could be 6 months. If there's hope at the end of that, we'll hold them there until we can get a place to put them.
Right.
But that's the problem. Transitional, you can stay a year, 2 years. I've even heard up to 2 or 3 years, and that's
Really?
a long time. But at the same time, it may take that to get a family. But we need more transitional housing in this area to move people out of this arena of emergency
Right.
shelter.
Certainly appreciate your efforts in addressing the situation and appreciate the comparison with other counties. I've heard a lot of positive things about the shelter that you mentioned in Salisbury, and have wondered in the past if there were things maybe that we could be doing that we're not doing or should be doing that we're, those kind of things. It's very helpful to know how we stack up with other folks.
Well, you're blessed to be in this area. I traveled to the southeast. I've been from Texas to Washington, D.C., to Florida, different divisions where I've served. I have never met a community that cares about their people, and I'm not saying that because I'm sitting before you. Because I have witnessed people sacrifice, business people, personal families sacrifice of giving just to try to meet the need of their brother and sister that's down on their luck. Because all it is one bad decision or one major event, and it can happen to any one of our children or any one of our siblings or anything. We need to be ready to respond accordingly. And I see it in this community, and it just touches my heart. Like I said, I've only been here 3 years, and this is absolutely, I'm getting close to retirement. And I cannot tell you, if I retire from here, it's going to be on a high note because this has been an awesome appointment for me.
Thank you for that. It's certainly good to hear, and I certainly share those thoughts about our community and the people that we have here as
It's
well.
awesome.
Mr. Chairman, I want to say something else before we get going
Yes,
on this
sir.
too, because, we don't get these folks in front of us too often, so take advantage of it. But, you know that in North Carolina, and really particularly in Cabarrus County, we've got a serious opioid problem.
Yes.
Matter of fact, I think that we're probably the #1 county in North Carolina with emergency department visits from opioid overdoses, that type thing. And between that problem and what we as a commission are trying to do with the sheriff's office with the Stepping Up program, which is mentally ill, mentally challenged people that are there. I said those two things to say this. A lot of cities, or I shouldn't say a lot, but some cities where they have Salvation Army, they also have a rehab part of that. Now, what you are proposing here doesn't have anything like that, does it?
No, sir, but one thing we can do, and we have 25-bed unit in Mecklenburg County called the ARC. It's Adult Rehab Center. It's a totally different ministry. As we interview people, and we sense that they're on drugs, because we've been in it for 37 years. We can do some things, even drug tests. I even implemented drug testing. I've even went as far as putting hair follicle tests. I'll pay the $100 to find out if they're dirty, because then we can remove them over to the ARC if they're willing to go. I can't mandate them, but one thing, if they're dirty and they're continue using my facility, they're not gonna be there.
Can't stay.
So they're gonna have a choice.
Right.
Go to the ARC, and that's a 6-month to a year program, possibly job and employment at the end.
Right.
So you do, with this connection, this conduit with the Salvation Army in Concord and Cabarrus and Stanley counties, we move people from that area to the rehab center, and we can move them across the nation if we have to, because we have many ARC centers. So it's not like it's a closed door.
Right.
We can certainly monitor that and move it accordingly.
Well, that's good, and I think collaboration with all of these
Very
different
important.
efforts in communication will be the success of this, and it could
Absolutely.
benefit all of us, the county, it could benefit the Salvation Army, and most of all, those that's got those issues.
Yes, sir, and success to me is if you can get one off of the drugs and put a family back together, stable in the community, that's success. I don't get caught up in the numbers, okay? Thank you.
Thank you very much for being with us. We all think about the Salvation Army at Christmas time when either we're ringing the bells or we're hearing
Thank
other
you.
people ringing the bells as they're going out. But, you know, we certainly do realize that you operate 365 days a
Yes,
year,
sir.
and we certainly appreciate what you do and encourage you to come back and talk with us again when you have updates that you'd like to share. We'd love to hear from you.
I certainly will, and since you brought up the bell ringing, the goal is 200,000. Last year, we raised 208,000, so.
Wow.
We need your help whenever you can. We will take that help, and the Lord will bless it tenfold, so that's the way I look at that. Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you. Okay, next up, we are pleased to have Kyle Billifer with an update on the parking deck project.
Good afternoon. Just wanted to get back together with a group as we're going to start construction on January 8th. That was a hard date that I owed the commissioners, and wanted to go through kind of a couple of the updates along with the entire process, to also give you some ideas about the adjacent parking lots that we've been in front of you talking about. The county has spoken with 3 different entities about leasing surface lots in the area to be able to shift all of our employees over, and we're in serious talks with 2 of those folks right now, and have been working with the attorney on those agreements and hope to have the final 1, if not 2, hammered out prior to January 8th. Right now, we're identifying all of the employees that are in the building that are currently not leasing spots from this parking deck, so that we can identify all those folks to be able to move to these other surface lots. We have also obtained a proposal for the construction materials testing phase of the parking deck, which will be separate from the actual general contractor contract. That price is in excess of $300,000, and Susan will be up tonight talking to you about that. We had gone out for RFQ and obviously had our structural engineer and our architect review all the RFQ submissions with me, and chose a group called Kleinfelder, who's done a significant amount of work in parking decks in this area. And we've just gotten that proposal from them, so we'll be entering that contract. That'll be all the testing that takes place on your concrete, steel, reinforced steel, barrier steel, masonry, soil, so all the actual testing and special inspections that'll go on throughout the entire process. Messer and myself, we have met with Susan with our finance office, and we've gone through everything on all the pay applications, sales tax, all the different regulations that exist when dealing with a county, so we were all lined up for that. And we should probably, the contract with Messer most likely will be executed by the end of the week, and we'll have that back to them. So everything is in line to start on January 8th. Only other couple important notes since it relates to downtown. Messer has entered an agreement with Carolina Courts to use their parking lot during the business hours, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, for their contractors to park down there, which obviously keeps them out of the public surface lots, which is what we wanted. And they're also in the talks with the church across the street about using some of the area to actually put their construction trailer there. I don't believe that is hammered out. I've spoken with the project manager of Messer as early as 10 minutes before this meeting, and we're working on the seismic monitor placement right now with different adjacent owners. So everything that we've tasked everybody with, we are moving right ahead. Just wanted to give everybody an update.
Okay, questions for Mr. Billifer?
No questions, but I will make a comment. I have occasion to read reports, construction testing reports, and Kleinfelter's one of the firms that I read. They're very thorough and very good. So for whatever it's worth, that should be fun.
Yes, sir.
So will we have some sort of ceremony on January 8th to connotate the beginning of this project? Fireworks, anything of that nature?
It'll be me going from this to just total gray. I'd probably give it a couple hours after January 8th.
Okay, well, it's exciting. It's going to be
Chairman,
like
you
some...
could just ride over there and symbolically park your car on the site.
Perhaps, yeah, yeah. It's like so many of the other projects we're experiencing all over Cabarrus County right now. We're going to experience some pain in the process, but it will be worth it in the end. So we certainly appreciate your efforts.
If the board is in approval of it, I plan on coming up probably on a quarterly basis to just give updates of where we are throughout the process unless anybody wants anything sooner than that, I will.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now we move to discussion items for action at our December 18th meeting. First, we have 4.1. Jonathan Marshall and Tim Louder to talk about Cox Mill Force Main easement.
I'm going to wait for Tim to come up here because I could just repeat what he's told me, but it'd be a lot easier for you to hear firsthand.
Good evening. How y'all doing today? This item is one that came to us due to the development along Cox Mill Road. As you may recall, about 16 years ago when we built Cox Mill Elementary School, there was limited sewer in the area, and so one of the options we had was putting in a pump station and running a force main down Cox Mill Road all the way to Clark Creek so we could tie in the sewer about 2,700 feet. Due to the expanded development in the area, they're obviously doing some road widening and some turn lanes and that sort of thing, and we did ride NCDOT easement of the NCDOT right-of-way. Well, once that road is expanded, our force main would be under the pavement, and DOT does not wish for that force main to remain under the pavement. So, being we're riding an easement, it's our responsibility to move that. The initial cost was about $100,000 to have to replace that easement, that force main the entire way to Clark Creek. So we worked out an agreement with the developer to extend the sewer up within their subdivision to allow us to tie on much, much sooner, and also run across a piece of their property to tie directly into one of the manholes that they're going to extend inside the subdivision. And the total cost for them doing that for us was like $27,400 and some odd dollars. I had to just write it. It's in there, $27,440, I think it is. And so that's much less, obviously, than our other options, which were born across the street, going to the high school side, or going and replacing the force main completely down the street. So, but as part of that agreement, we would have to have an easement across their property in order to tie into the manhole. And this is what this easement's all about. And we were paying for this out of maintenance funds for the relocation of the force main. But it also opens up the road so we don't have to worry about the other 2,000 feet that's going to be developed again farther down the road as they begin to develop that as well.
Okay. Questions for Mr. Louder? Did I understand correctly that you need a decision on this tonight? Is that right, Jonathan?
That has been requested, yes.
Yeah. So there has been a request that we suspend our rules and vote on this project tonight. Okay, do I hear a second to Commissioner Shue's motion? Okay, we have a motion and a second to suspend the rules. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. And we would now entertain a motion to approve the Cox Mill Force Main easement as described by Mr. Louder. Okay, we have a motion. Do I hear a second? Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, can Mr. Latta just repeat the dollar amount again?
I've got to get my
It's
glasses
not on
out
the
here, sorry.
cover page, and then there is the change order in the back. I just want to make sure.
I'm sorry, it's $25,744. Yeah,
Okay.
I transposed the 7 and the 5. I'm
Okay.
sorry, from memory, that's bad, I'm getting that old.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I was riding by your place Saturday and watched you putting up Christmas lights, and I just wanted to let you know that it's slightly lower on one side.
Oh, well,
No, it looked very nice.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
You're quite well. Y'all have a good one. Thank y'all.
You too. Okay, next we move to item 4.2, Canapa City Schools funding request for contract changes at the middle school. And we're happy to have Will Crabtree with us.
Good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me to be here today. Here for a change order for our new Kannapolis Middle School. Involves numerous items. The biggest one of those would be unsuitable soils. We had to bring in quite a bit of soils off-site onto the site. I will tell you that we, as a school system, our board was a little disappointed in the timing of this change order when it was presented to us by the contractor. Usually, that type of change order is presented much earlier in the project, not at the end. So it came as quite a surprise to us that it was going to be this amount. So I do want to let that be known that we're not happy with this either, of how it was given to us. We have had discussions. Myself and Dr. Buckwell have talked to Mr. Downs and Mr. Bilfer about it, and met with the contractor and the architect and discussed it. But it's unfortunate, but I am bringing it for your discussion today. I'll open it up for questions.
Well, Will, you're right. We haven't been happy with this. I haven't been in one in particular because, and I would imagine that Blake and Liz as well, because we've all served on school board before. And of course, Kannapolis hasn't built that many schools, whereas Cabarrus has built a lot. And I was talking with Blake a little bit before the meeting just to confirm my thinking on change orders. And typically, for a school construction project, you're looking at maybe, because you've got a contingency there to fall back on, but change orders, usually 1, 2, maybe 3 change orders, maybe, the duration of a construction project. And if I'm not mistaken, I looked through all of these different things, and if I'm not mistaken, this was like the 16th or 17th change order on that school. Is that, do you know if that's right?
This was change order 6.
6?
Yes.
Well, I was thinking, I don't know where I seen the 16 or 17, but it was a high number of change orders.
There may have been 16 or 17 items across the 6 change orders.
Yeah.
That could possibly be it, but there have been 6. This will be the 6th change order.
But one of the things that really concerns me, I guess, more than anything about this is where the bidding process comes in.
Yes, sir.
Whenever, let's use a hypothetical example here. I'm not saying this is what happened, but hypothetically. You look at, you got 5 bidders for this job, and obviously this contractor got the low bid.
Yes.
All right. Now, the items that we're looking at, which could be numerous things, I think one of them was hand dryers for the bathrooms.
Correct.
I think it was like 17 of those or 12 of those, and then the wiring had to be done for all of that, and all of that, for whatever reason, was extra. But you say you got these 5 bidders, and they bid $35 million and $6 million, $37 million, and all that. Well, we had to go with the lowest bidder, obviously, unless we've got reason to not go with that. All right, well, with the low bidder, which in this case was this contractor, gets the bid, hypothetically, at $35 million. And then he comes back and gives us $1 million or $1.5 million in change orders for things that should have been in the contract, which would not have made him the low bidder had those things been in there. Whereas with the other ones, the second and third lowest bidders, those items could have been in the bid. And it gets complicated, and that's where the school board has to take care of that and be real careful to make sure what's in the contract. And I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened, but according to what the county manager was telling me, that your contingency was somewhere around 1.2 million, 1.3 million, somewhere thereabouts.
I think it
And
was 1 million, wasn't it?
Little over $1 million. And so we've basically used all of that, and we're needing to get an additional $122,000 in addition to that. And it was concerning. I don't want to kick a dead horse, because we know it's not good. You admitted that, it's not good, but,
No,
you
it's,
know,
it's embarrassing for me to have to come here and.
Well, I don't mean to
I
be
feel as
like-
bad as you do, and I hate it happened, I really do.
well, I know you do. I don't think we could have paid you to do it, you know, but we're just gonna have to just be more careful to make sure that none of this stuff slips by, because, you know, we're dealing with taxpayers' money. And with these guys here serving with me, you know, we're the stewards of that money, and we have to give an account for it. And when things pop up that's not supposed to happen, then that's when we have to bark a little bit.
I understand.
And so, but it's not directly toward you, you know that.
I
by no means.
understand, I do.
And, you know, and I'm gonna say one last thing, because the other item is coming up. I might as well just go ahead and mention this too, because it's coming up next as well. And see, when we were talking about the grant, $255,000 grant, well, old Lynn here, I was trying to be the good guy, you know, and say, look, can we help this school system out? Because they're a small school system. They worked on this grant for 3, 4, 5 years, and guess what? They finally got the grant for $255,000. So can we make up that extra $85,000 or $88,000, whatever it was? I talked to the county manager about it. He got with Pam, you know, our senior deputy manager, and they said, Lynn, I think we can do that. And then after we have it on the consent agenda to approve, I get word that we got all of this coming, and I'm saying to myself, whoa, wait a minute. You know, we're gonna give them $85,000, and now they're gonna need all of this, and I wish they had told me about this before I asked about that. I hope you understand what I'm saying.
I completely understand what you're saying, I do.
But we've talked about it, the county manager and myself, you know, we've talked about it a little bit, and I'm sure other commissioners may have talked about it as well. And I don't want to take up a lot of time on it, but, you know, I just appreciate you coming straight forward, you know, and
I'm gonna tell you the way it is, and that is the way it is, and you have every right to be upset and disappointed, and I truly understand that.
well, we're gonna move on, you know, we're gonna move on. We'll get the school built. You guys get people in there, and we'll start using those seats that you're needing, and everybody's gonna be happy. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I guess one question, just to understand better, using the hand dryers as an example.
Yes, sir.
Is it that the architect forgot to put the hand dryers in the specs, or that he was planning on using paper towel dispensers and we decided hand dryers were better, or how does that happen?
A little of both. We discussed using hand dryers before in the design phase, and had gone back and forth, because right now we do not use hand dryers in any of our schools. We use paper towels. But we talked about doing that, and apparently wires got crossed. Architect didn't follow through with designing it with hand dryers. We wanted hand dryers, and that's where we're at now.
Yeah, I was just curious, and using paper towels is a huge expense.
It is.
With that many children washing hands, so I can understand why it may be more economical to go the other way, even though it sounds like a lot here.
Yes, we wanted to, and that's exactly the reason that we were looking at doing that, is maybe cutting the operational cost of the building by using hand
Right.
dryers.
Right, great. Any other questions for Mr. Crabtree?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, thanks. And Will, I'm not trying to pile on, and basically Steve just kind of asked exactly where I was going was, whether these are owner-initiated changes or design-initiated changes. And if they're owner-initiated changes, well, guess what? You're out of money.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't, I mean, I guess I get, let's stay in track with the paper towel thing. Well, it got missed. Are they in? I mean, he's requested the change. I don't think the change order's been executed, so
No.
they hadn't been installed yet.
No, they have not.
Okay. I mean, I guess I'd be of the mind that at some level, we got to figure out what you need and what you kind of wish you had. And right now, we're sort of out of the wish funds.
I understand that.
And if it's a design problem, I mean, it sounded like you've had some conversations with Mosley.
We have.
And I saw, the only one I saw in here, there was a hot water something or another to a science room, which seems pretty basic for a science room, and if they miss it, how do you miss that?
We've had discussions with them. I can't answer for them, of course.
Right.
But it was missed.
And I mean, are we trying to put a little heat on them to
Oh, yes.
say, listen, I mean, that's your issue. Come to the table, and I mean, at some level, they're responsible for some of that.
I can tell you that the contractor and the architect were required to be at our last board meeting and were required to explain themselves at the last board meeting.
Right.
And they're gonna be required at the next board meeting of our Canapa City Board of Education to do the exact same thing again. So we are putting pressure on both the contractor and the architect to explain the need for all of this at the end of the project. So
Well-
I think our board is trying to be diligent in doing that.
Okay, well, that's good, and I guess I would just implore you to, as sort of the overseer of
Sure.
both entities, the architect and the contractor, to take a good, hard look at the things that you kind of wish you had
Mhm.
that maybe got missed, and if it's something you're gonna have to do without, I mean, you may have to do it out. The fact that
understand
we've
that.
blown through $1 million worth of contingency and we're having to overreach that's a big number on, and Lynn kind of went through it, you know, as you look at it from the outset, you bid it a certain way, everybody's bidding the same drawings.
Sure.
If those questions came up, I mean, that's the other thing you need to do is go back and look what questions were asked up front. If there was a contractor that was pointing out the quality of the drawings or an issue with that, you go back to Mosley and say, listen, we knew this up front, so there's more incentive to, you guys need, they do carry errors and omissions insurance,
Oh, I know.
so.
We've
anyway,
had discussions.
And again, I'm not trying to beat you up. You're the one that's tasked with sitting here. You're
Yes.
having to sort of explain, and trust me, I know what it's like to sit over there and explain a few things, so.
I know you do, and, but here again, you have every right to be upset, and I totally understand. I do.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
I just want to add, Susan's going to talk to you a little bit about the budget amendment, and
So we realized that we need $121,793 that's went past the contingency amount. I would like to propose, and we can make the necessary paperwork before your next meeting, that money come from our contractor sales tax savings. When we are bidding our projects, we do not back out the amount of contractor sales tax that we do realize, because we don't know the amount at the time. We like to use that money to help decrease our debt service payments. That's the idea. But that money is available for this project. We do keep it segregated so we can, if, for instances like this, for emergencies, that we can dip into that money and use that money. There are adequate monies there to cover the to $121,000 right now. So if that's the wish of the board, I could prepare the budget amendment and project ordinance for the main meeting in December.
and these are sales tax revenues that are generated from that particular job site. I do want to just add to you, and we'll weigh you here, I mean, this is for 121.9, there will be another one coming through, and the majority of that is for soils. right?
Soil. Mhm.
Yeah, so, in the contract, there's always quantities and a price per cubic yard, and you don't always know what your unsuitable soils are, or the exact number.
I did look and make sure, I mean, you should have a soil engineer there quantifying the lifts and the cut, so, and it's there, so, I mean, you can't, that's one of the things, you wish it wasn't happening, but you can't do anything about that. But at least if you've got it documented, you can at least see what you're getting billed for, and you're not just taking their word for it. And I was looking for that specifically, and it is in there.
Yeah, there is one more area that they've cut, and now they're going back now to fill. So once they get that number, they'll come back one more time to fund that. And hopefully if it's not too much, that sales tax will be able to cover that as well.
Okay. Other questions? Based on the work you're talking about, cutting and filling and hand dryers, I'm assuming this school's not gonna be opening this school year.
Well, that's kind of the million-dollar question right now. Odds are, you know, I don't want to speak for our board, but we're doing everything we can to open it January 3rd. I'll leave it at that. Whether that happens or not, it's kind of up in the air right now.
Right, and of course, the original schedule was for it to open
in August of 17.
Right.
Yes, sir.
And the change order includes 14 weather days.
Right.
So, you know, when this change order gets approved, their schedule's, you know, going out 2 more weeks.
Right.
Okay, so if you make those appropriate budget amendments, then we can vote on this at our regular meeting, or is this the issue that need to be voted on tonight? Or was it the other one regarding the grant?
I didn't have anything that would.
Neither one of them needs to be tonight.
Okay,
Yeah, no.
okay, I thought that was one of the ones that you had. Okay, very good. So, do you have adequate feedback from us?
Yes, I will use the contractor sales tax savings from the Kannapolis Middle School project to prepare the appropriate budget amendment and project ordinance, and we'll update the agenda item to say that for the next meeting.
Great, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we move to item 4.3, which Commissioner Hsu mentioned briefly, and that is Canapa City Schools' request for funds to match federal grant. And we have talked about this a little bit before. If there's anything you'd like to add.
Just like to add that we appreciate your support in this matter, and appreciate the proactiveness of Mr. Hsu and hearing about this at our board meeting and kind of taking the ball and running with it. It is important, and these are pre-K kids. They do have inadequate facilities right now when it comes to restroom facilities. So we very much would like to continue with this project.
Great. Any other questions or comments? I was at a meeting in Raleigh last week, and it was pretty amazing as they talked about return on investment. And the younger kids, the return is so much higher. So it is valuable and important, I think.
Yes.
Right. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, and I do want to again apologize for having to be here. Thank you very much.
All right, we move to item 4.4 from Active Living in Parks. We're happy to have Byron and Londa with us to talk about 2017 fees and charges policy. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's that time of year for us again to have our new fee and charge policy, or have our fee and charge policy updated for calendar year versus fiscal year. Just as a reminder, we do that opposite of budget time, just because we have so many things that if we started July 1, could have 2 different fees for, like the swimming pool or camps or reserving a shelter, whatever it might be. So we try to do it on calendar year, which helps us and helps the participants. We don't have a lot of changes this year. I don't know if you had an opportunity to look through that very short list that Byron put together, the summary, and for once it is a very short list. One point of clarification, there are 2 documents. One is the policy and one are the fee and charges. I know they look very much the same, but one says fee and charges and the other one says fee and charge policy, and the policy is just how we come up with the fees, how we process and the things like that, whether it's for a refund or who gets what priority. And then the fee and charges are exactly that, just the fees and charges. and have Byron here tonight, our Assistant Director, to go over those fees with you. And he promised he would be very short.
I promise I will be. And again, the policy, I did not need any changes, so the fees here, there are the only things that we're changing through here. If you'll see number 1, just adding verbiage there, adding a time frame, and then also increasing the discount $1 per person, just to help with the feasibility of our equipment and how we have our accountability at the actual concession stand. Number 2, the adding verbiage to the Camp Spencer pool, putting a limitation on the groups themselves, the daycares, the children organizations, limiting that to 2-hour sessions, to making sure our facility does not become their facility for watching the children there, and with our limited availability of that pool. Number 3 is the shed 1 of the barn at Frank List Park, dropping the cost in the actual shelter reservation price, just due to the square footage dropping with the addition of the restroom that we have gained on the outside of the barn, which has been a wonderful addition, just shrinking that footprint down for that shelter to match the other reservation pieces that we have throughout the park. Number 9, increasing, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the little summary sheet.
That evidently we didn't attach.
Really?
Yeah, I thought we did, and that's why I just gave that to you.
When she clicked on it, there were 2 attachments, and
Right,
she's just on.
Yeah,
So I'm on, the point I'm at right now is page number 9 for shed 1. And the summary is the one that I'm on right here.
okay, there you go.
Thank you. Any questions at that point? So, number 9, increasing kayak and canoe rental time and rate. We're actually just doubling the time, doubling the rate. People are going out, they're riding for 30 minutes and wanting to come back and pay again. So, majority of our participants are only wanting to ride for an hour. So instead of them having to come back and pay again, we're just going to change it to 1 hour and make it more efficient that way. Number 5. FLP, Franklin Park Group Party, birthday party, adding some verbiage there, adding a time frame to that with the ever-changing weather that we have, with warm weather in the winter times and things like that. With limited staff, we need to make sure that we have staff available for these specific birthday parties, so putting a specific time range in there. Number 6 is increasing the half-day camp series from $15 to $20. We're just, with a high demand for that program and just providing a higher quality program, increasing that $5 for that half-day camp series, and also the addition of the log rolling classes at the bottom of that section. Just it's another new addition that we've been able to add at Camp T in Spencer Park, and then also at Frank List Park with a portable pool. So making sure we have that verbiage in there for the cost for that. And number 7 is actually dropping the senior center classes and workshops from $3 down to $2 and up, to give us more flexibility based on the programs that we offer. So very, very small changes to that. Is there any questions or anything I can help clarify with those changes?
I'll give you one clarification on the classes for the senior center. That's not for the whole session, that would be per session.
Correct.
So if there were 6 sessions, it would be $12.
Thank you.
Okay, questions for Byron or Yolanda?
I don't have any questions, but before you close it and they go away, I think there's a special event coming up this week that you might want to share with the viewing audience.
The seniors' Christmas party, Thursday from 10 to 2 at the arena. We'd love for everybody to come.
Great. I was wondering if maybe the commissioners could do a team building exercise with this log rolling class.
Most definitely. The last time we invited you all, I think you sent a proxy.
Well, I think it happened at the same, we had another meeting going on or
Oh,
something.
yeah, I think that was correct.
Yeah, or else we'd have been there.
Pretty sure it was a competition.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, any other questions or comments? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next item are Board of Commissioner appointments for 2018. I think our clerk had sent out a list, which is attached to our agenda within the last week or so, and I have not heard any requests for changes. Did anybody Is everybody okay with their,
I am. I would just like to ask a question of our clerk. So it says 2018 proposed commissioner board, so I would assume the meeting dates are under here are correct for the quarterly, whether it's quarterly dates. So, okay, great, thank you. Just wanted to, I felt sure, but I wanted to hear it.
okay, well, if hearing no request for changes, that would go on our consent agenda for our regular meeting. Should anybody come up with anything, I'm sure that this is not set in stone. We could still have discussion about it. So we move next to item 4.6, Board of Commissioners resolution establishing 2018 meeting schedule. Terry, did you have any comments on that?
No, I just wanted to, microphone. I'm sorry. You gotta, turn it on. I'm sorry. I just wanted to present this before the board, for the upcoming year, and if you had any questions for it.
Thank you. It looks like we're going to have a change due to the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday, also New Year holiday, Labor Day holiday, adding our planning retreat and our budget workshops, and then a potential change, the work session in March. I think that 4 of us will be gone for then. Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, then we move to item 4.7.
Excuse me.
Yes, sir.
The retreat, Terry,
I'm sorry,
the retreat on January 19th.
19th to 20th. Hold on, let me get back to there.
That's on the first page. You went too far, right there.
Oh, it's in the resolution?
Yeah.
Okay, I was looking at the schedule.
Yeah.
So we need to match the final schedule with the
Okay.
Okay, so that change can be made before our regular meeting.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Okay, we have approval to request annexation for elementary school property, and Jonathan will talk about that.
This is a subject actually Tim Louder had raised at your last meeting. Most of the municipalities require a request for annexation with the extension of utilities. Since we are not a tax-paying entity, that's usually up in the air, but we are recommending that the property for the new elementary school off Hickory Ridge Road be annexed into the town of Harrisburg. We had hoped to have a little larger school park there than it looks like it's going to be able, but we're still working on that, and by doing that, we hope to eventually offset some of those additional utility costs that he'd identified for you. But I was really just looking for a consensus to see if there's any issues with us requesting annexation to the town of Harrisburg.
Okay, any questions or comments or concerns? I would take that as a yes.
Thank you.
Okay, item 4.8, I think has been a request to move to our January meeting. Did you have any comments on that?
Yeah, we've been working on, Lundy and Pam have been working really hard on that, and Pam is in Washington DC at this time at a meeting, so we request that we go ahead and move that to January so everybody here can be here for the presentation.
Okay, very good. Okay, item 4.9, Department of Human Services, HCCBG funding plan revision, and we're delighted to have Anthony Hodges with us.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. If you recall, back in June, I came before you and presented the FY18 Home Community Care Block Grant funding plan. And at that time, the funding plan was based on our fiscal year 17 numbers, since the state hadn't released their final numbers yet. We did get those final numbers in September, and the Area Agency on Aging wanted us to wait until October because there's times that the federal government will make some changes that will affect that, and this year they did not. So we did get our final numbers, and Cabarrus County did get a little bit of an increase. It's 2.85%. We did our first budget off $776,675, and the county ended up getting $798,808. So a little bit over $22,000 in extra funding, and the reason I need approval, because that'll require an increase in matching funds. The county matches 10% of that, so that's $2,458 in matching funds overall. The committee, since it was less than 5%, when the advisory committee met in the spring, we had discussed what to do if we got more money, and since it was less than 5%, they voted approval for me just to adjust that over all the programs. So basically, I just increased each program by 2.85%. If it had been more than 5%, then we would have met and decided what to do with it. But basically, I just put that over each program. So it's a little bit of extra money, not a lot, but every little bit helps, so.
Okay, any questions for Anthony? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, item 4.10, from Finance, budget write-off of capital projects in the Construction and Renovation Fund and the School Construction Fund. And we are happy to have Susan Fearington back at the microphone.
From time to time, it's good to clean up some of our accounts, and some of the projects have been on the books, and after 1 year of no activity, we can write them off. So there are several projects that I want to get written off our books to make accounting easier and for tracking purposes. So some of the projects that we're proud to announce that we're finished was the Odell School 3 through 5. So it's time to write that off our books. And then we had 4 different roofs. If you remember, there were Northwest Middle, Rocky River Elementary, Wynkoop Elementary, and J.N. Robinson High School. So those projects have been completed, and we just need to write them off of our capital projects funds. And that entails a budget amendment and related project ordinances that will need to be executed. So it's purely a write-off of completed projects. And some of them could be when we're moving projects. We will start accumulating funds in a particular capital project. Then when we decide we're going to issue debt, we want to move all the related expenses over. So some of this is actually moving funds to another fund for better accounting tracking purposes.
Okay, questions for Ms. Fearington? All righty, thank you. We move to item 4.11, contractual incentive payment for SMG at the Cabarrus Arena, and Susan will also talk about that.
And Jonathan's also here, but each year, based on the performance of our SMG company that runs our arena, we have different categories for quantitative and qualitative goals that are met, and this year the calculations have been done. They've been reviewed by Jonathan and by Kenny Robinson from the arena, and the budget amendment is prepared and presented for you to approve for this contractual incentive payments, and it goes along with their contract. And the amount for both of them together was $65,826, and that includes our food and beverage and our regular performance measures that have been done. We are wanting to take that from our fund balance appropriation. This will also, when I come to you in the regular meeting in December, be part of the funds that we will subtract this contractual payment away from the extra money before we transfer it to capital reserve based on our CAFR presentation, which we'll make at the December meeting. So that'll be more clear when we do that later on. But we are suggesting right now to have this come out of our fund balance money, the extra money that was established after our June 30th, 2017 audited financial statements.
Okay, questions?
Just one, Mr. Chairman, and for Susan. How did this incentive payment that we've got here before us compare to previous years? Because it looked to me like that the arena's doing much better financially with the revenues versus expenses.
Yes, there is quite in line. I would have to pull that history
Well,
to get back to you. If you want me to maybe do like a 5-year history, I've got that, I just don't have it in
know,
front of
I'll
me.
just, wanted to see it on paper, rather than trying to go on memory. It just looked to me like that it was just a much better year, and I would like to see that.
Okay, I can prepare that for you.
Not much trouble, right?
No.
Okay.
No. That'll be easy.
I think that just a quick snapshot of that 5-year history, that would
Absolutely.
be very beneficial.
And I'll break it down between regular operating and the food and beverage, because we do keep those separate.
Okay, any other questions? And I think that will be helpful. I mean, that's one of those things when we have to pay that, that's a positive thing, because it means they're doing well. So that will be interesting to look at. Okay, then we will move to item 4.12, limited obligation bonds. Susan again.
Okay. So I sent out an email earlier, probably the first part of November, updating you on the limited obligation bonds settlement. So we did that on October 26th, and we had a very favorable sale. And the amounts that I will call them out for the public, but we had a principal amount of $70,820,000, and we will use that money for the new high school, which was $63.2 million, the Performance Learning Center $3.5 million, and then the downtown Concord parking deck for $11.6 million of our proceeds. The high school and parking deck are 20-year bonds, and the Performance Learning Center is a 7-year bond. And then the true interest cost that we were able to obtain was 2.8%, which is right in line with what we had when we issued the debt in March of 2016 for the Kannapolis Middle and the Mount Pleasant Middle and the Royal Oaks. And it was, I think it was like 2.6. So it was right in the same area, so that was good. To be able to pay our debt service payment for June 30th, 18 year, which is what we're in right now, there will be no tax increase. We were able to, we knew about this debt going into the FY18 budget, so we went ahead and budgeted those funds, and we were right in line. In fact, we had some savings, so we'll come to you later on with those savings. But we will not have to have a tax increase for the FY18 budget year. Cannot make any promises past the FY18 year. So as we work through the budget process the next couple of months, we'll come back to you if there's a need for debt service, additional debt service payments. Just to let you know that the total interest and principal amount that we'll be paying over the life of the bonds will be $99,771,000. So that breaks down to a principal amount of $70.8 million and an interest of $28.9 through the years. So just to let you know, it's expensive to issue debt, but with that, also we had debt rating agency calls during the past couple months, and so we spoke with Standard & Poor's and Moody's and Fitch, and they all spoke very highly of the county. And some of the things that I wanted to point out, that our strengths that they point out, was we have conservative management, we have strong economy, and strong financial position, and a sizable tax base. So they were pleased. We were able to maintain our ratings. So each one of them maintained the ratings. So that's always good. It was, maybe in the future a goal might be to increase our rating, but at this point we're happy to maintain our rating. And also I wanted to point out in this agenda item, there was a budget amendment and several project ordinances, and just to get you up to date. Now that we have our final settlement on our debt, we need to go in and adjust our debt proceeds, because I had an estimate in there, but we issued our bonds at a premium. So just part of the budget amendment was to line up our debt, our proceeds with between principal and the premium that we were able to obtain. Also in the agenda item, Mr. Shue picked up on this in one of my emails, is that we decided that the PLC, which is our Performance Learning Center, that we were going to incorporate into our debt the furniture and fixture and technology amounts into our debt amount. We could afford to do that. Since it was only a 7-year, we felt very comfortable that we didn't want to pay for technology over 20 years, but we could for the 7-year. So that frees up about $331,000 that will stay in our capital reserve, so we can use that on future other projects in the county. So that was a good thing. So that's incorporated in the budget amendment. And then the final thing I wanted to update on the budget amendment, there's a engineering line for the parking deck, and Kyle Billiford alluded to this earlier when he gave his parking deck update. But the amount for the parking deck total engineering is going to be, after this budget amendment is approved, $452,000 for engineering. We have the new Kleinfelder contract that we need to go ahead and process so we can get them going. So this additional amount to get the engineering line up to the $452,000 is included in the agenda packet for today. We would like to go ahead and, if you don't mind suspending your rules, and go ahead and approve this budget amendment so we can go ahead and process the Kleinfelder contract and get them going on that, instead of waiting 2 more weeks till the regular agenda item. So that is included in the budget amendment that's presented. And I think, is there any questions? I know that was a lot of numbers thrown at you. I did email that out earlier in November, some of the numbers to you, but if there's any more questions or anything, I'll be happy to answer.
Okay, questions from Ms. Farrington? It's a lot of numbers. A lot of money and a lot of numbers, yes. Okay, do I hear a motion that we suspend our rules to take action on this request today? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The motion passes. I would now entertain a motion to approve the budget amendment to record the 2017 limited obligation bonds, proceeds, the related project ordinances, and authorize the county manager to execute the parking deck engineering contract subject to review and/or revision by the county attorney. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. Thank you. Okay, next item, 4.13, policy updates for the library, and we are delighted to have Emery Ortiz with us to inform us about those items.
Good evening. The library system is also undergoing some policy updates. These are mostly just general. I did outline them in red for you in your packets. As a general overview, one of the policies we updated was our collection development policy. And the changes made there were to include new materials that we're actively collecting, such as graphic novels and the launch pads. We also updated some of the processes for things like how we collect local history materials, our reconsideration for library form, or library materials form, and purchase requests. And we also updated our weeding guidelines there. Another policy that we sent to you is our rules and regulations for conduct in the library. And some of those updates include expected behavior on behalf of the public. We had a few incidents throughout the past year that we wanted to make sure were explicitly stated in that behavior policy as being unwelcome and inappropriate for the library. And that includes treatment of our volunteers and employees. And we also added specific procedures and consequences for when people repeatedly fail to follow those rules and regulations. And then finally, we have our meeting room policy. And the updates there are similar in that we clarified expectation of kind of how you use the meeting rooms and how you treat that space. So all members of the public are able to use that equally.
Okay, questions for Emery? We all were under the assumption that you had a very strict behavioral policy there, and all you had to do was just go shh, and as librarians have always done, and that would solve all the problems.
You know, that
Not
doesn't work
true.
like it used to. I know,
Right.
unfortunately not.
Right, and I say that jokingly because I do serve on the trustees board, and we have had these discussions in detail as to the need for that. So do any of you have questions for Emery? All right, thank you very much. Okay, we move to item 4.14 from Planning and Development. Contract for Farmland Preservation Grant from Soil and Water Conservation District Board, and we're happy to have Daniel McClellan with us.
Good evening. Last December, we applied for, the Soil and Water District Board applied for a Farmland Preservation Trust Fund grant for a permanent easement on Michael Barrier's farm off Creighton Road in the eastern part of Cabarrus County for 35 acres. We received a letter back this fall that we had been approved for that grant, and the amount of $60,146. That is only a portion of buying the conservation easement, and from here we would go and apply for the federal grant. But before we can apply for that, we have to have approval that we will accept this state funds. So I guess what we're asking is for the Board of Commissioners to approve this contract for the $60,000 that we are going to receive from the North Carolina Department of Agriculture, and then we will apply for the federal side of this easement too. And the grant will, or the, this is gonna require a budget amendment and a project ordinance approval because we're gonna be using money from our capital improvement project, the $125,000 that we already received. 25,000 of it can be used toward these type projects.
Okay. Questions for Mr. McClellan? I guess the state grant, federal grant, if you get it, as you wish to apply, would that cover the full cost of the easement, or would there be some additional funds required?
We've budgeted for what we need as far as surveys and hopefully legal fees, and they have to have like an environmental assessment for the property. Hopefully that amount will be able to cover that.
Right.
So, and then the landowner donates 25% of the value of the property for this. So there wouldn't be any really a match other than what we've already got budgeted for the project.
Then the legal fees are included.
That's based coming out of the
legal fees
capital.
come out of their 125,000 the commissioner's budget.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we move to item 4.15, appointment of a board member, appointment of board members for Cardinal Innovations Healthcare Solutions. I think that any of us that have listened to the news or read the newspaper realize that there's been some changes there, and we received information. I think all of you got a copy of it in an email from Secretary Cohen regarding that situation. They have proposed that the 20 counties in Cardinal's catchment area appoint a nominating committee that would be responsible for deciding the composition of the new board to guide that organization going forward. And so we have been asked to submit one person, and I think they want that by December the 8th, or maybe it's the 15th. Anyways, prior to our regular meeting.
That's correct.
Yeah. So I think we've had some informal conversations prior to this, and Commissioner Shue has indicated that he's willing to serve in that capacity. We don't know the meeting schedule, or I don't think that's been determined yet.
Well, I think it'll be relatively soon because they got to have the appointment done by the 15th.
Right.
So it'll be, I think, the week of the 11th.
It's the week of the 11th.
Week of the 11th.
Okay, so you are still willing to serve in that capacity? Is there anybody else that's interested in serving, or even if we wanted to have an alternate in the event that there was a scheduling conflict? Okay.
Anybody else that's expressed interest that would be maybe willing to be the alternate, or?
Well, I understand that Commissioner Poole had some interest at one time. She might want to comment on that.
I probably can't work it in my schedule.
Okay. All right, well then I would accept a motion to suspend the rules so that we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes, and I would make a motion that Commissioner Lynn Shue be our representative on the nominating committee, or the selection committee, I think is the term that they used, for Cardinal Innovations' new board. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. And we move to the approval of the regular meeting agenda. Yes, sir.
It's not on the agenda, but I would like, Karen, if you can pull it up. I think you have met her through the process, but I did want to officially introduce Karen Calhoun is our new Director of Human Services, and she has been on in-house now for a week, and she knows everybody's name and everybody's position, everything. It's amazing how much she's learned in this week. But we did, and make sure that we got her on TV as well, so that the public can see her face, and so that they can recognize her when they come in. But we're excited. The staff is excited as well. We had a very good reception last week, and excellent comments afterwards, after having the chance for the staff to meet Ms. Calhoun as well. So good to go. Had your first item on the agenda tonight too, right?
Great. Well, we're happy to have you on board, and we'll try really hard not to introduce you as the new Ben Rose.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here, and I've been welcomed by the staff, county management staff, and the staff at DHS, and I'm just excited to be here and ready to get to work.
Great. Well, we are excited to have you and want to welcome you and look forward to working with you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. All right, then on to the approval of the regular meeting agenda. You have that before you. I'm not I think.
So, I had a few questions.
Yes, ma'am.
5 comes off, right?
There, we're talking about F5.
5, Is that coming off since they didn't get to come today?
That'll go
Okay.
to January.
And then 9 comes off because we've already voted on it?
That is correct.
As well as F4.
F4. Is
F4,
that the
the-
4.7? Oh, wait a minute.
F4 is the
F4,
force
the
main
Cox Mill Force Main easement.
Okay, that was. And then does the 4.7, the approval to request annexation, does that need to go on, or is that just?
That, I just needed
Gave
your
a head
consensus.
nod and that was
Yeah,
sufficient?
that's
Okay,
it.
that's all the questions I have.
Okay. Anybody else have see any changes that need to be made or have any questions? Okay, then I would encourage a motion to approve as presented with the 3 changes we
So moved.
discussed. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. And I do not think we have need of a closed session tonight. So I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. We stand adjourned. Thank you.